Section 1. The World Before the Hunt. The Age of Gods and Blood. The forgotten world beneath the moon. Long before the first hunter took up their saw-cleaver, before the streets of Yharnam echoed with cries of beasts and bells, the world of Bloodborne was already ancient. Beneath its cobbled roads and Gothic towers, secrets far older than the healing church waited, buried under cathedrals, under dreams, under the flesh of mankind itself. In this earliest age, humanity had not yet peered beyond the veil of its small existence. People lived ordinary lives in ignorance of the Great One's beings, neither fully mortal nor bound by human laws. They existed outside the bounds of time, vast intellects of consciousness rather than flesh, perceivable only through dreams and altered states of awareness. They were not gods in the way mortals understood the word, but presences currents of will that shaped reality like tides upon the shore. Those who sought them were drawn by whispers, visions, or curiosity. The Great Ones did not impose their will upon humanity. Rather, humanity reached upward, desperate to understand. This longing, this yearning for truth beyond comprehension, became the seed of everything that followed. The first sin of curiosity. Among the first to hear the call were the scholars of Byrgenwerth. Situated beside a great lake and surrounded by whispering trees, the College of Byrgenwerth began as a place of natural philosophy. Its master, Master Willem, taught that knowledge was the highest pursuit, but it must be approached with caution. He warned, "We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood." Willem's words, preserved through law, would come to define the tragedy of this world. He had seen something within the lake, a reflection, not of water, but of another reality. Beneath its surface lay remnants of a civilization older than humanity itself, the ruins of the Prummerians. These ancient beings once dwelled deep below the earth, within labyrinths later known as the Chalice Dungeons. The Prummerians are said to have unlocked wisdom of the eldritch truth, communing with the Great Ones. One queen, named Yharnam, served as vessel and mother to beings beyond reason. Her legacy endures in her blood, the same sacred ichor that would one day fill the syringes of the healing church. The Prummerians had ascended too far, drawn too close to the stars. Their empire fell, leaving behind endless tombs beneath Yharnam's foundations, crypts of chalices and fetid altars. To the scholars, it was discovery of the divine. To Willem, it was a warning carved in stone. The old blood. It was in these ruins that the scholars of Byrgenwerth made their greatest and most terrible discovery, the old blood. Its origins are uncertain, though many believe it was drawn from a great one, such as Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos, found deep within the church's later catacombs. The blood possessed miraculous properties. It could heal wounds, invigorate the body, and grant glimpses of higher understanding. Yet, as Willem feared, this divine ichor carried within it a subtle poison, the seed of transformation. To be touched by the blood was to be changed, at first imperceptibly and then grotesquely. The more one relied upon it, the more humanity slipped away. This could imply that the old blood was not simply a medicine, but a fragment of cosmic essence, a medium linking mortal flesh with Great One thought. Communion with gods demands a mind capable of infinity, yet the human soul is finite. To peer too long into their realm is to lose oneself to it. Among Willem's brightest students, Lawrence refused to heed this warning. He saw in the blood a miracle to be shared. Salvation, he believed, lay not in restraint, but in transcendence. Humanity could ascend if it embraced the divine essence. Their conflict would fracture Byrgenwerth forever. The schism of Byrgenwerth. Lawrence took the knowledge of the old blood and left Byrgenwerth behind, founding a new institution that would become the Healing Church. His goal was to bring the miracle of the blood to all who suffered. In Yharnam, a city built above Thumerian, ruins his faith found ready disciples. The first blood ministrations healed the sick. The crippled walked, the blind saw, and the dying lived again. People rejoiced, and faith in the church grew absolute. Lawrence became a prophet, the old blood his gospel. Few questioned the origin of their salvation, but Willem did. He sealed Bergenwerth's gates and turned his gaze inward, away from blood and toward eyes. "We require more eyes on the inside," he wrote, believing that true ascension lay not in the body but in perception. The mind, not the flesh, must evolve to commune with the great ones. In this, he was both correct and doomed for. Knowledge and corruption are kin, and the human soul cannot grasp one without inviting the other. The Thumerian legacy. While the scholars argued above, something ancient stirred below. The chalice dungeons still pulsed with remnants of great ones, their influence seeping upward through veins of stone and blood. The people of Yharnam began to dream moons too large to exist, oceans filled with eyes, lullabies sung in unknown tongues. Queen Yharnam, though long dead, appeared in visions, her spectral tears of blood staining the dreams of the devout. Her lost child, Murgo, cried within the nightmare, heard only by those whose minds had already been opened by insight. Based on what we know, this connection between ancient Thumeria and modern Yharnam suggests that the city's curse was never new, merely inherited. The blood in Yharnam's veins was the same divine contagion that felled the ancients. The hunt was not born in the age of man. It was a continuation of a story written long before humanity learned to read it. The sleep of the Great Ones. The Great Ones, in their distant wisdom, did not interfere. They watched, as they always had, as mankind toyed with their remnants. To the Great Ones, time is meaningless. Every event is both memory and premonition. They dream in cycles, and each dream births a new world. Hunters would later call these dreams nightmares, but to the Great Ones, they are simply creation, breathing in and out. Every prayer, every experiment, every bloodletting echoed through their slumber, calling them closer, and as the boundaries between dream and waking began to blur, the moon itself seemed to pulse a watchful eye, opening above the sleeping city. This was the quiet before the hunt, the calm before the chorus of bells and screams. Humanity had found godhood in a vial, and in doing so, had opened the gate to its own undoing. The age of blood had begun. Section 2. Bergenwerth and the Search for Eyes. The College by the Lake. To understand the beginning of the hunt, one must first stand upon the quiet grounds of Bergenwerth. The wind over the lake still carries echoes of lectures, long-ended words whispered to empty benches about truth, eyes, and the nature of humanity's limits. The college was founded not merely as a school of science, but as a sanctum for those who sought to peel back the skin of the world and glimpse what lay beyond. Its scholars, once revered across Yharnam for their intellect, delved too deeply into what should never have been touched. In those years before the Healing Church, Master Willem presided over Bergenwerth with the sternness of a man who understood the weight of discovery. His teachings were simple yet cryptic. We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. But his later words revealed the evolution of his thought. We require more eyes on the inside. To Willem, the true gateway to understanding the Great Ones was not blood, it was perception. The mind must open, and only through seeing could one ascend. We require more eyes. At the heart of Willem's philosophy lay the concept of insight, a measure not of intelligence, but of awareness. Through the act of witnessing, through proximity to the Great Ones and their remnants, The human mind could stretch toward enlightenment. This notion is preserved in the eye rune, which reads, "Eyes symbolize the truth Master Willem sought in his students. Those who recite the eye rune will awaken to a higher plane of thought and recognize a familiar voice." This could imply that Willem believed enlightenment could be cultivated physically, that the human brain, if flooded with enough vision, might glimpse eternity. The students of Byrgenwerth experimented with this idea in secret rituals, gazing into pools, dissecting malformed embryos, even attempting to graft additional eyes upon their bodies. It was madness masquerading as philosophy, but to them it was devotion. Each sought communion with the Great Ones, not through faith or prayer, but through understanding, Lawrence, and the blood of salvation. Among Willem's students, Lawrence was the most brilliant and the most reckless. He revered his teacher, but doubted his restraint. To him, the blood they discovered in the Pythagorean ruins was not corruption, it was transcendence. Lawrence saw in it the possibility of healing, of eternal life, of humanity raised to godhood. The tension between the two men grew unbearable. In time, Lawrence abandoned Byrgenwerth, declaring that the era of thought had ended and the era of miracles had begun. He took with him the secrets of the old blood and journeyed to Yharnam, founding what would become the Healing Church. Willem remained by the lake, surrounded by silence and students too afraid or too faithful to leave. Those who stayed began to lose themselves in their research. Eyes appeared in their dreams, whispering truths they could not bear. Based on what we know, these experiments marked the point where Byrgenwerth ceased to be a college and became a laboratory of transcendence and of torment. The discovery beneath the lake, beneath the placid waters of Byrgenwerth's lake, something ancient slept. It was here that the scholars encountered traces of a Great One's presence, perhaps the lingering resonance of Ebrietus, or another being of the same kind. The lake runes mention that the water acts as a defense of the mind, suggesting that the lake itself was not ordinary, but an interface between the waking world and the Great One's dream realms. When Willem gazed upon its surface, he saw reflections that defied geometry stars, rippling like eyes opening within the deep. Some scholars believe this was the moment Willem realized his own error, that blood would destroy humanity faster than knowledge would save it. He withdrew into meditation, seeking not revelation but stillness, while others, Mikolash, Rom, and perhaps even Lawrence before his departure, pursued further communion. It was during this time that one student, in their desperate pursuit, achieved contact. They transcended humanity entirely, becoming Rom, the vacuous spider. Rom, the vacuous spider. The transformation of Rom marks the true fall of Byrgenwerth. Her existence bridges the material world and the nightmare, and her presence shields the reality of the Great Ones from those not yet ready to perceive them. When Rom dies, the veil lifts, and the red moon descends, a moment that marks the merging of waking and dream. The empty phantasm shell item reads, "Empty invertebrate shell that is said to be a familiar of a Great One. Use phantasms to imbue weapons with arcane power." This description implies that Rom's new form is both vessel and filter, protecting humanity from truths that would annihilate the mind. Rom's transformation is not portrayed as punishment, but as a form of preservation. Perhaps she sacrificed herself to keep the world from collapsing under the weight of cosmic revelation. Master Willem, upon witnessing this, did not celebrate. He only murmured his final words, "Fear the old blood." The eyes within. In the wake of Rom's metamorphosis, Byrgenwerth became haunted by silence. The remaining students either fled or lost their sanity to visions. Eyes bloomed in their dreams and in their thoughts, multiplying beyond number. They saw shapes moving between the stars and heard lullabies from mothers they could not remember. Many believe that the act of witnessing Rom's ascension, seeing a human become an inhuman guardian of knowledge, broke their fragile minds. The eye runes found later in the world are relics of that obsession. Each one marks a mind that peered too deeply into truth and never returned. In the years to come, these ideas of sight and insight would shape every philosophy within Yharnam. While Lawrence spread his faith through blood, Willem's disciples spread their blindness through knowledge, and between them, the line between enlightenment and insanity disappeared. The quiet collapse of Bergenworth. By the time the first hunts began in Yharnam, Bergenworth was already abandoned. Its lake reflected only the moon, and the empty dock where Willem sat, unmoving until his last breath. The remaining scholars left behind, tomes filled with half-translated runes, theories scrawled in the margins of nightmares. Rom lingered beneath the water, guarding the veil that kept the world sane. Above, the healing church rose to power, ignorant or perhaps willfully blind to the truth their founder had denied. The age of learning had ended. The age of blood had begun. Section 3. The healing church and the age of blood. The birth of the church. From the quiet collapse of Bergenworth rose something new, an institution built on salvation, not restraint. When Lawrence left the lake and its empty halls behind, he carried with him a revelation and a curse, the secret of the old blood. In Yharnam, a city of faith and suffering, Lawrence's message found eager hearts. He promised redemption through divine ichor. His followers called it a miracle blood that could heal wounds, restore vitality, and cleanse sickness. Thus was born the Healing Church, an organization that would soon rule both body and soul. Its foundation stones were faith, secrecy, and control. Where Willem had taught caution, Lawrence taught grace through transformation. And as the people drank, they began to change. At first, the blood seemed holy. The sick were cured, the dying revived. But in every vial was a whisper, a trace of the Great One's essence that stirred the beast within. Based on what we know, the Healing Church's early success was not a miracle, but a careful illusion. Their priests and hunters disposed of those whose cures went wrong before the public ever knew. The miracle of blood ministration. In Yharnam's cathedrals, the faithful knelt before altars draped in crimson cloth. Priests anointed them with vials of gleaming scarlet, reciting blessings of the old blood. And though each ministration healed, it also bound. Those who received it felt drawn back, craving more with each dose, what they called communion. The communion rune itself describes this dependence. The blood of the divine grants greater communion. The Healing Church has sanctified it. This could imply that the Church deliberately cultivated dependency, masking addiction as faith. The city's wealth grew with its devotion. Pilgrims came from far and wide to receive the blood, and beneath the cathedrals, experiments deepened. The structure of the Church. Over time, the Healing Church evolved into a vast hierarchy. The upper cathedral ward, where the highest clergy and scholars conducted secret rites to commune with great ones. The choir, a sect devoted to direct contact with the divine guardians of ebrietas. The school of Mensis, more radical still, seeking to draw the great ones into the waking world. The workshop, created to control the chaos the Church itself had unleashed. Each faction believed itself the rightful heir to Lawrence's vision, and each interpreted the old blood in its own way. The choir and ebrietas. Deep within the upper reaches of the Grand Cathedral, the choir discovered a remnant of the cosmos. Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos, found abandoned beneath the orphanage. She was a great one left behind when her kin ascended. To the choir, Ebrietas was proof that humanity's pursuit of godhood was not folly, but destiny. They worshipped her as a living link between heaven and earth, believing she would guide them to enlightenment. From her, they drew new strains of the old blood, purer and more potent than before. Yet her presence was not benign. Those who communed with her began to lose their human shape, growing eyes in their flesh, their minds blooming into madness. In this, they fulfilled Willem's dark prophecy. The price of insight was the dissolution of self. Still, they called it progress, the school of Mensis. While the choir gazed upward in reverence, the school of Mensis turned its sight inward. Led by Micolash, they sought to contact the Great Ones through ritual and dream. They constructed the Mensis cage, a device that symbolized the brain's opening to higher planes. The description of the cage reads, "Those who wear this brain cage will be granted eyes on the inside, for the Great Ones are sympathetic in spirit." Through their experiments, the school succeeded. Where Bergenworth had failed, they established communication. But their communion did not bring clarity, it brought nightmare. Mikolash's mind reached the Great One known as Murgo, the stillborn child of Queen Yharnam, cared for by Murgo's wet nurse within the nightmare. The price of this contact was Yahargul, the unseen village, which collapsed into the dream, its inhabitants twisted into the forms of their worship. This could imply that the school of Mensis never truly contacted the Great Ones. Instead, they were absorbed by them, their dream becoming a permanent scar upon reality, the scourge of the beast. Even as the church ascended, the blood's corruption spread. At first, victims were hidden in the catacombs. Then they filled the streets. The transformation was gradual, hair thickening, nails sharpening, voices deepening into growls. The people of Yharnam called it a scourge, never suspecting it was the result of the very blood they worshipped. When the beasts multiplied beyond control, the church invented a new ritual, the Night of the Hunt. They declared it a holy cleansing, and they created hunters to carry it out. The hunters and the workshop. To manage the hunt, Lawrence enlisted his old friend German, a craftsman and warrior of immense skill. German designed the first trick weapons tools that could shift form mid-battle, matching the fluid brutality of the beasts. The hunter's workshop rose in secret beneath the church's tower, producing weapons, attire, and rituals for the hunt. The church could now purge its mistakes without exposing the truth. By day, the faithful prayed. By night, the streets ran red with their own salvation. And though German's service was holy in name, it chained him to an unending cycle of killing. The curse beneath the cathedral. As the years passed, the blood's corruption deepened. Those who partook too often grew monstrous not only in body, but in soul. The church's upper halls filled with beasts hidden behind vestments and hymns. Beneath the grand cathedral, in the cathedral ward, they buried their failures. One of these was Vicar Amelia, a high cleric who guarded Lawrence's skull, a relic containing echoes of his last sermon. When she succumbs to transformation, she becomes a beast of radiant fur, clutching the skull as if to hold on to her faith. Her prayer echoes Willem's warning. Fear the old blood. That moment is the cycle made visible, the church's faith eating itself alive. The illusion of salvation. Yharnam's people never questioned. They called the beasts sinners, not victims. They believed the church's word that the hunt was holy, and that through fire and blood they would be purified. Yet the truth was simpler and crueler. There was no salvation, only delay. Every cure was another infection. Every prayer, another chain. The old blood was not a gift. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's hunger for transcendence. And as that hunger grew, so too did the nightmares. The age of blood, By the time the first hunter's dream opened, Yharnam was already lost. The church had built an empire of faith upon the corpse of science. Willem's warnings had been buried, his college forgotten, and Rom's veil strained thin. The red moon hung heavy above the city. Blood flowed in the streets. And still, the faithful lined up at the cathedral doors, asking for one more vial, one more miracle. The Age of Blood had reached its height and its breaking point. Section 4. The Scourge of the Beast. The quiet infection. At first, it was only whispers. A few patients of the healing church, once cured of their sickness, began to change. Again, voices deepening, skin thickening, eyes gleaming faintly in lamplight. The priests said it was fever. The scholars said it was purification. But it spread. In the homes of Yharnam, people woke with hunger, not their own. They dreamed of forests, of fur and claws, of a moon that watched them breathe. And when they awoke, their hands trembled not from weakness, but from strength. Thus began the Scourge of the Beast, the curse born of mankind's devotion to the old blood. To outsiders, it seemed sudden, but to those within the church, it was the inevitable consequence of Lawrence's miracle. The beast blood pellet description reads, "A coagulated pellet of beast blood. The beast within the human draws close." This could imply that the transformation was not a disease, but a reversion, a return to something primal within the human spirit awakened by the Great One's influence. The first hunts. When the first beasts roamed the streets, panic spread faster than the plague itself. The healing church moved swiftly to contain it, sealing districts and burning entire wards. The people were told it was holy work, a night of the hunt, where sin would be cleansed through fire. But the church could not fight alone. They called upon their old ally, Gehrman, to assemble a group of specialists capable of slaying what could no longer be cured. Thus the hunters were born. They were both saviours and executioners, sanctioned by the church to cut down those who succumbed to the blood. Each night they roamed the streets, weapons gleaming, eyes haunted by what they had to become. And when dawn came, the bodies were gathered and burned, leaving no trace of the beasts, nor of the men they once were. The workshop of hunters. In the secret depths of the cathedral ward, Gehrman established the Hunter's Workshop. It became both a place of craft and confession. Here, the first trick weapons were forged saws that split and folded, canes that turned to whips, blades that extended like predatory claws. Every design reflected the paradox of the hunt, the elegance of creation born from the need to destroy. The workshop's badge of the hunter describes them as, Gehrman, the first hunter, crafted the hunter's tools to battle the beasts. Each weapon was personal, a reflection of its wielder's will. And in the workshop's chapel stood a small figure in white cloth and porcelain skin. The doll, made in the likeness of Lady Maria, Gehrman's lost student. The doll was both comfort and curse. She spoke softly to the hunters, soothing their minds before each night's slaughter. Whether she possessed a soul or borrowed one remains unclear, though based on what we know, her compassion seemed beyond creation's limits. The hunter's burden. The hunts became ritual. Each night, the church declared a new cleansing, and the people rejoiced, believing their city purified. But the blood did not rest. Hunters soon learned that killing a beast meant inheriting its frenzy. The beast embrace rune explains this cycle. The first hunter embraced the hunt, becoming the first beast. This could imply that every hunter carried the contagion within, resisting transformation only through sheer will. Some fell mid-battle, their weapons turning against allies as fur consumed their flesh. Others vanished, swallowed by the nightmares that followed them even when their eyes were closed. Gehrman watched as his pupils became monsters, and his own guilt grew unbearable. The workshop became a graveyard of broken blades and lost names. The church's cleansing fires, unable to contain the scourge through blades alone, the healing church turned to fire. They created the church hunters clerics, armed with flames and conviction. Their torches burned through the night, purging entire districts of both beast and man. The most zealous among them formed the executioners, followers of Logarius, whose purpose was to hunt the vile bloods of Cainhurst, a noble line accused of using forbidden blood rites. What began as a mission of faith became vengeance. The church's war reached every corner of Yharnam. Based on what we know, these purges were not purely holy. Many of the so-called heretics were rivals, scholars who refused the church's monopoly on blood. Fire silenced dissent. And yet, beneath the ashes, the plague endured. The beast within, the scourge revealed a truth the church refused to see, that the beast did not come from outside, but from within. Every person who partook of the old blood carried a spark of transformation. Whether priest, beggar, or scholar, all were equal before its curse. When the cleric beast first appeared, it was not seen as a failure, it was worshipped. The faithful believed it a vision of divine rebirth, a human purified of sin and made holy through the blood. Only later did they realize the horror. Each beast was a mirror of devotion, faith turned feral. The transformation was not a punishment, but a reflection of belief. The deeper the faith, the greater the fall. The first vicar and the blood of Lawrence. The cathedral itself became a tomb. Lawrence, founder of the healing church, was eventually consumed by the very power he had spread. His skull, preserved on the altar before Vicar Amelia, radiates echoes of his final sermon. Through her transformation, we glimpse his fate. When Amelia kneels before Lawrence's relic, her prayer becomes a plea. Our thirst for blood satiates us, soothes our fears. Seek the old blood, but beware the frailty of men. In that moment, the divine miracle becomes confession. Lawrence had become the beast clergyman, a monster of burning fur and faith, and his death signalled the end of the church's illusion. The endless night. Once the red moon appeared, the line between man and beast vanished. The bell of the hunt tolled without end, its echoes reaching even the dreams of the dead. Every street became a battleground, every house a pyre. The hunters no longer fought for salvation, but survival. Those who saw the moon directly, those whose eyes were opened by too much blood or too much insight, began to glimpse the great ones in their waking lives. For them, the hunt would never end. Their world had become the nightmare. This could imply that the scourge was not simply a disease of blood, but a spiritual infection, a collapse between dream and reality caused by mankind's proximity to the divine. The legacy of the scourge. Even as the church crumbled, its creed endured in whispers. Every hunt was recorded as victory. Every pyre was called purification. The truth was buried with the beasts. The scourge of the beast became Yharnam's inheritance, passed from one generation to the next, each believing the next hunt would be the last. But the moon never set, and the blood never dried. The hunt had become the city's heartbeat. Section 5. The Great Ones, Cosmic Gods and Lost Children. The echoes beyond the veil. Long before the healing church, or even Bergenworth, the Great Ones watched the world from realms unreachable by human sight. They were not gods in the mortal sense. No thrones, no temples, but cosmic minds that drifted through dream and dimension, shaping reality by thought alone. To humanity, they appeared as stars, voices in the blood, or vast shapes glimpsed in fevered visions. Each Great One was unique in form and temperament, yet all shared one tragic trait: the loss of a child. The Great One's wisdom description reads, "Those who grasp its significance will see the cosmos for what it is. From this, we can assume the Great Ones do not live in isolation but in echo of one another, each seeking a surrogate child to replace what they have lost. This longing binds them to humanity, for mortals are fragile enough to host their dreams. The Moon Presence. At the heart of this cosmic hierarchy lies the Moon Presence, the most mysterious of all Great Ones. It is she, if gender can even be assigned, who presides over the hunter's dream, that ethereal refuge where time stands still and the hunt repeats forever. Gehrman's servitude within that dream is the clearest evidence of the Moon Presence's will. When the hunter first enters the dream, the doll greets them with calm reverence. Welcome home, good hunter. But the dream's calm is a prison. Gehrman is its first prisoner, and the Moon Presence its unseen jailer. The creature descends at the dream's end, only when the cycle breaks, its presence imposing or merciful, depending on how one interprets it. The third umbilical cord describes this link. Every Great One loses its child, and then yearns for a surrogate. This could imply that the Moon Presence created the dream not as punishment, but as protection, a cradle for hunters to keep the chaos of the hunt contained within illusion. It preserves the world by trapping those who might destroy it. Gehrman's Pact. Gehrman, the first hunter, once served the healing church and fought to contain the scourge. When his conscience broke under endless slaughter, the Moon Presence appeared to him, or perhaps he summoned it unknowingly through blood and guilt. Their pact created the dream, a reflection of the hunter's workshop where Gehrman could continue his duty in eternity. Whether this act was mercy or manipulation remains unclear. The 1/3 of umbilical cord item states, Provost Willem sought the cord in order to elevate his being and thoughts to those of a Great One. Based on what we know, the Moon Presence's intervention mirrors Willem's failed pursuit. It grants transcendence, but only through servitude. Hunters who awaken within the dream gain power at the cost of freedom. Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos. Beneath the Grand Cathedral, hidden deep within the upper cathedral ward, lies Ebrietas, the so-called daughter of the cosmos. She kneels eternally before a broken altar, wings like veined glass, weeping for kin who have long departed. The Is Chalice and Great Is Chalice both suggest that the healing church discovered her during their explorations of the deep labyrinths beneath Yharnam. Her presence inspired the creation of the choir, a sect devoted to celestial communion. The choir did not worship her as deity, but as guide, believing that by imitating her communion, humanity could ascend. From her blood, they extracted the purest strains of the old blood, hoping to create contact with the cosmos itself. But the results were horror. Eyes bloomed in their skulls, their forms distended into the grotesque celestial children. Even so, they considered their fate divine, proof that the veil between human and Great One could be pierced. This could imply that Ebrietas herself sought not worship but companionship. Perhaps she allowed the choir to remain near her as a substitute for the family she had lost. The Wet Nurse and Murgo's Lament. In the deepest layer of Nightmare lies Murgo's Loft, a towering cradle surrounded by infinite darkness. Here resides Murgo's Wet Nurse, a towering being of shrouded arms and mirrored blades, guarding the unseen infant Murgo. Murgo is never directly seen, yet his cry echoes throughout the nightmare. Queen Yharnam appears nearby, her spectral form weeping, silently proof of her connection to the child she bore through communion with a Great One. When the hunter defeats the Wet Nurse, the cries cease, and Yharnam bows in relief. This moment, subtle and wordless, marks perhaps the only act of mercy between humans and Great Ones. The umbilical cords and Blood Queen Yharnam's appearance both confirm that Murgo was born of divine union. But whether the Wet Nurse was protecting protector, warden, or devourer remains uncertain. Based on what we know, the wet nurse could represent the Great One's attempt to shield their offspring from human corruption or from their own kind. The orphan of Kos and the curse of the old hunters. Far from Yharnam's spires, across the dark sea, lies the fishing hamlet, a place cursed by the sin of discovery. It was here that the old hunters, under the church's authority, unearthed the body of the Great One Kos who had washed ashore. Rather than revere the corpse, they dissected it, seeking knowledge. In retaliation, the Great Ones cast a curse upon them, a nightmare that repeats endlessly within the Old Hunters DLC. Within that nightmare, we find Gehrman's apprentice, Lady Maria, and beyond her, the orphan of Kos, a shrieking newborn birthed from the corpse of its mother. Its lament is not for vengeance, but for loss, and when the hunter ends its suffering, the storm above the hamlet stills. The Kos parasite item reads, "When the nightmare swells with the curse of the Great Ones, the orphan of Kos will be reborn." This could imply that the death of the orphan releases the curse by granting closure to Kos's grief. Among all Great Ones, only Kos shows compassion in death, a mother's final forgiveness. The Great One's patterns. Across every fragment of Bloodborne's world, the same pattern emerges. The Great Ones attempt to create or adopt children. Humanity seeks to ascend to their level. Both efforts end in loss and madness. The Great One Cold Blood item description captures this symmetry. The immense will of the Great Ones lives on in the blood. From this we can assume that the Great Ones are not malicious, but cyclical. Each generation of human thought calls them back, repeating the same tragedy. They are mirrors of our ambition, responding to the same hunger that birthed the scourge. Dreams, nightmares, and creation. The Great Ones communicate through dreams, using them as vessels to shape or observe reality. To them, the waking world and the dream are one continuous fabric. Hunters who slay beasts and gather insight gradually pierce this boundary, their minds opening to the cosmic sea. Every nightmare in Bloodborne, the hunter's dream, the nightmare frontier, the fishing hamlet, is a memory made living, a world shaped by regret. This could imply that the Great Ones do not create nightmares to torture, but to remember to relive moments of loss until they fade. When the player ascends to the status of a Great One, the cycle renews. A human becomes divine, and divinity seeks a surrogate once more. The lost children, the Great One's longing for offspring, unites their stories. Murgo, whose birth cost his mother her humanity, the orphan of Kos, a child born dead yet cursed to scream forever. The moon presence, adopting hunters as children in its dream. The doll, perhaps animated by a Great One's compassion to nurture humanity's last remnants. In every instance, creation and sorrow are inseparable. To love, in the cosmos of Bloodborne, is to lose. The meaning of the Great Ones. What are the Great Ones? Gods, aliens, echoes of human thought? Perhaps all three. Their blood flows through humanity's veins. Their dreams shape human will. Their tragedies repeat as ours. In seeking them, humanity only rediscovers itself fragile, curious, and endlessly longing for connection. As one scholar once wrote in Yharnam's crumbling library, the sky and the cosmos are one, and in that single phrase lies the truth of the Great Ones, that the divine is not beyond reach, but already within. Section 6. The Hunter's Dream and the Moon Presence. A quiet place between worlds. When the blood moon rises and the bells toll, the waking world twists upon itself. Yet somewhere beyond it, neither life nor death, rests the hunter's dream. This realm is calm. The air is soft. Cherry blossoms fall endlessly upon the roof of a small workshop. To a weary hunter, it feels like mercy. But, as every dreamer learns, mercy here is only another form of control. The dream mirrors the real hunter's workshop in Cathedral Ward, down to every plank of wood and the tools on the bench. That echo is no coincidence. It is said that the workshop's creator, Gehrman, was bound to the dream by a great one, known only as the Moon Presence. The doll stands there always, her porcelain face serene, as if waiting for the dreamer to wake. She speaks gently, yet her words carry weight beyond comprehension. May you find your worth in the waking world. Those words are blessing and curse both. The binding of Gehrman. Long ago, after countless nights of hunting, Gehrman's heart broke beneath the weight of what he had done. He had forged the tools, trained the hunters, and watched each one fall. Whether from despair or some deeper ritual, the Moon Presence came to him. What passed between them is unknown, but the outcome endures. Gehrman was given dominion over the dream and chains to hold him there. The third umbilical cord describes that bond. Every great one loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. Based on what we know, the Moon Presence may have chosen Gehrman as that surrogate, binding him as caretaker of its hunters, its children. The dream thus became a nursery, an illusion of peace, sheltering the endless hunt. When new hunters fall in battle, their spirits awaken here, drawn by the Moon Presence through the link of their corrupted blood. They rise again, granted strength by echoes of slain beasts, and are sent back into the nightmare to cull what the church cannot. The mechanism of the dream. Everything within the dream serves a purpose. The messengers, pale creatures that scuttle at the hunter's feet, are thought to be fragments of the dream's will, perhaps expressions of the Moon Presence itself. They repair weapons, carry notes between worlds, and maintain the illusion that the hunter acts by choice. The workshop tool reveals this control. A small workshop tool enabling hunters to repair and fortify their weapons, maintained by the messengers. This could imply that the dream sustains itself through repetition. Every hunt strengthens the bond. Every repaired weapon reaffirms the cycle. The dream grants power, but it also erases memory, each awakening blurring what came before. Blood echoes and memory. When a hunter slays a beast, they absorb its blood echoes, the residue of life and will. These echoes act as currency, but more profoundly, they are memory, the record of existence itself. By channeling them through the doll, the hunter grows stronger. The doll's dialogue, "Let the echoes become your strength," hints at her true role. She is conduit and confessor, translating the blood's memory into form. Based on what we know, the doll's compassion may stem from a great one's influence, perhaps even the Moon Presence, lending her fragments of empathy to calm its children. But every echo absorbed also ties the hunter further to the dream. To die is to return. To awaken is to forget. Only when the cycle ends can the soul truly rest. The Moon Presence. When the dream burns, the sky tears open, and the Moon Presence descends a figure both skeletal and graceful, its limbs like strands of shadow. Its arrival is neither salvation nor judgment. It merely restores the order it created. The Moon Presence does not speak, it acts. If the hunter submits, Gehrman ends their suffering, and the Moon Presence reclaims them, closing the dream until it must awaken anew. If the hunter refuses, they must face Gehrman in battle. Defeating him breaks his bondage and draws the Moon Presence forth. Should the hunter also consume the 3/3 of umbilical cord, their mind transcends the Great One's control. In that moment, they confront the Moon Presence not as servant but as equal. Upon victory, the hunter is reborn, a small, pale creature, cradled by the doll. The dream does not end, it simply changes hands. The nature of the dream. No text in Bloodborne states explicitly what the dream is, but through fragments, the runes, the notes, the whispers, we can infer. The Hunter's Mark reads, "This reminder allows one to awaken again without losing blood echoes. A hunter is never alone." This could imply that the dream is a spiritual refuge, a metaphysical construct maintained by the moon presence to recycle hunters' souls. To destroy it would unbind the hunt, but might also collapse the barrier, protecting the waking world from total nightmare. In this way, the dream serves both sides. It is prison and salvation, illusion and mercy. As long as it exists, the hunt continues, but without it, the world might drown beneath the red moon forever. The doll and the memory of humanity. The doll's existence raises question, no scripture answers. Created by Gehrman in the image of Lady Maria, she possesses warmth that no automaton should. When the hunter kneels before her, she whispers prayers not of gods, but of care. Her gesture, the simple act of a curtsy, reflects the last grace left in Yharnam's world. In a realm ruled by blood and fear, she alone offers tenderness. Based on what we know, the doll may embody the fragment of humanity that even the great ones revere, compassion. She is proof that within the infinite cycle of life, death, and rebirth, something gentle endures. When the dream finally burns, the doll tends to the new life left behind the infant Great One, born of the hunter's ascension. Her closing words, "Farewell, good hunter. May you find your worth in the waking world," are not goodbye, but blessing one echoed since the first night. Endless cycles. Each ending of Bloodborne is a variation of the same truth. Submit to Gehrman, and the dream resets. Resist him, and the moon presence claims you. Transcend, and the cycle begins anew through you. There is no victory, only continuity. Different faces, same moon. The hunters before you fought, fell, and dreamed again. The doll waits, the blossoms fall, and the bells never truly stop. This is the hidden mercy of the moon presence, to contain eternity within a dream soft enough to bear. Meaning beneath the moon. The hunter's dream is not merely setting or story, it is metaphor for the cost of awakening. Every hunter seeks truth, yet each truth binds them deeper into the dream. Freedom lies only in surrender, either to forget or to transcend completely. Based on what we know, the moon presence's silence may signify understanding rather than cruelty. It offers humanity what it cannot grant itself, a place to rest between nightmares, and in that fragile stillness, beneath the pale moon, even the weary may sleep. Section 7. The School of Mensis and the Nightmare of Insight. The birth of the school. When the healing church split under the weight of its own ambition, one faction looked beyond faith entirely. The School of Mensis, founded by the eccentric scholar Mikolash, took root within Yharnam's catacombs, deep beneath Yahargul, the unseen village. Where the choir worshipped the Great Ones through reverence, the School of Mensis sought direct communion. They believed the key to godhood was not blood alone, but insight, the ability to see the cosmos that overlapped their world. They wore cages of twisted metal upon their heads, contraptions meant to symbolically open their minds. The Mensis cage description explains, "Those who wear this brain cage will be granted eyes on the inside, for the Great Ones are sympathetic in spirit." That phrase, eyes on the inside, was their doctrine, their obsession. They believed that by transcending sight, they could transcend humanity. Mikolash, host of the Nightmare? Mikolash, the host of the Nightmare, was once a student of Bergenworth before the schism. He carried Willem's teachings to their most extreme conclusion. Where Willem sought more eyes metaphorically, Mikolash sought them literally. When the church denounced his research, he and his followers withdrew into the depths of Yharnam, transforming the ruins into a labyrinth of ritual altars and arcane devices. There, they prepared the Mensis ritual, a communion intended to summon the Great Ones into the waking world. The Great One's wisdom and call beyond items reference this act of reaching out to the cosmos. There are no mere mortals who can resist the call of the cosmos. Based on what we know, Mikolash's experiment may have succeeded too well. His mind reached across dimensions, but his body never returned. The ritual of Mensis. In the depths of the unseen village, the scholars of Mensis used blood echoes, Pthumerian relics, and the essence of stillborn Great Ones to create their communion. At the ritual's climax, they succeeded in making contact, but what answered was not salvation. The ritual tore a hole between worlds, birthing the Nightmare of Mensis, a realm of death and delirium. Those who participated were consumed bodies, fossilized in twisted prayer, their skulls bursting with malformed eyes. The surviving echoes became the nightmare's inhabitants, wandering endlessly under an enormous, disembodied brain suspended in the dark. The living string item, believed to be a remnant of that ritual, reads, "It is said to be a relic of the Great Ones, left behind by the lost and the mad." This could imply that the school of Mensis did reach the Great Ones, but the human mind simply could not withstand the communion. The brain of Mensis. Suspended above the abyss of the nightmare is the grotesque brain of Mensis, a pulsing, sightless mass worshipped by the remaining scholars. Its many eyes twitch endlessly, and even its gaze can drive intruders to frenzy. When the hunter cuts it loose, the brain falls into darkness, where it still murmurs quietly to those who approach, uttering faint sounds of sorrow rather than malice. This moment suggests something tragic, that the brain itself was once human. Based on what we know, the brain of Mensis could be the collective remains of those who performed the ritual. Their consciousness merged into one abomination. In seeking to create a god, they became one in the most horrific way possible. Murgo and the birth of the nightmare. The communion of the school of Mensis awakened Murgo, the lost child of Queen Yharnam and a Great One. Murgo's cry echoed through the dream and the nightmare alike, signalling the descent of the red moon. The blood moon descends only when the boundary between dream and waking collapses completely. Under its light, the Great Ones stir, and the hidden becomes visible the child Murgo, the wet nurse who guards him, and the city's true corruption. A note found in Yharnam warns, "When the red moon hangs low, the line between man and beast is blurred, and when the Great Ones descend, a womb will be blessed with child." That prophecy is the bridge between Yharnam's physical plague and its cosmic cause. The scourge of the beast was never merely biological, it was the symptom of human proximity to gods. The unseen village. Yharnam itself stands as testament to the church's hypocrisy. While publicly preaching salvation, it secretly used the village as a site for forbidden rituals. The corpses of its residents line the streets, eyes gouged open in worship. When the red moon rises, they are reanimated by the nightmare, their bodies moving under the influence of forces unseen. The bell-ringing women summon new horrors into the world through their connection to the Great Ones, tolling bells that blur dream and reality. This could imply that Yharnam was not just the origin of the school's experiment, but the prototype for the church's later rituals of rebirth, seen in the choir and the orphanage. The madness of insight. The concept of insight, represented by the stat of the same name, measures a hunter's awareness of cosmic truth. The higher the insight, the closer one is to seeing the Great Ones, and the more fragile one's mind becomes. When the hunter's insight grows, the world itself changes. Creatures that were once invisible now writhe along cathedral walls. The whispers of the Great Ones grow louder. The moon bleeds red. Based on what we know, this mechanic is not merely gameplay, it is metaphysical storytelling. Perception alters reality. Awareness itself invites the nightmare. The collapse of Mensis. When the hunter finally enters the Nightmare of Mensis, they find Mikolash alive, or rather, dreaming. He greets his intruder with glee, calling out, "Ah, Kos, or some say Cosm, do you hear our prayers?" His words echo both worship and regret. Mikolash fights not to kill, but to delay. His mind is tethered to the nightmare, his body long since dead in Yahar'gul's halls. Upon his defeat, he collapses with relief, whispering, "Now I'm waking up. I'll forget everything." That line confirms the fate of all who commune with the Great Ones. Awakening means amnesia, a mercy from madness. The death of Mikolash breaks part of the nightmare's hold, yet Murgo's presence lingers until the wet nurse is defeated. Only then does the crying cease and the blood moon fades. Lessons of the nightmare. The tragedy of the School of Mensis is the culmination of Yharnam's story. Each generation repeated Byrgenwerth's sin, reaching for heaven through means not meant for mortals. The Great Ones never punished humanity, they merely responded. In their own way, they granted what was asked, to look upon the cosmos and understand it is the greatest gift imaginable and the most unbearable. The madman's knowledge description warns, to even glimpse the truth is enough to drive one mad. Thus, the scholars of Mensis achieved their wish. They saw eternity, and it destroyed them. The price of insight. In the end, every school, church, and hunter returns to the same truth. Knowledge is not salvation, it is transformation. Each eye on the inside replaces a part of the soul. When the nightmare collapses, only silence remains. The red moon sets, but its light leaves shadows behind. The echoes of the School of Mensis whisper through the ruins, faint as breath. We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. And in that eternal repetition, the lesson endures. To see too clearly is to cease to be human. Section 8. The Old Hunters and the Sin of the Fishing Hamlet. The Whispers of the Sea. Long before the player's hunt began, before the red moon ever rose over Yharnam, there was another tragedy, one so terrible that the world tried to forget it. Across the dark waters west of the city, beyond the reach of the healing church's bells, lies a quiet, coastal village, the fishing hamlet. Its people lived humble lives, sustained by the sea, and guided by a simple reverence for what they called the Great Ones of the depths. They believed the ocean itself was divine, and that what slept beneath it watched over them. But one day, the waves brought a gift, or perhaps a test. The corpse of a great one, Kos, washed ashore. She was vast and pale, a being of celestial grace, her body broken by storms and time. The villagers gathered around her, mourning, whispering prayers to the mother from the sea. And then the healing church arrived. The coming of the church. News of the Great One's body spread quickly to Yharnam. To the church, the corpse was not sacred, it was opportunity. A delegation of old hunters, led by German and accompanied by his student Lady Maria, was dispatched to investigate. Among them were scholars, priests, and surgeons. The expedition was sanctioned as divine research. At first, the hunters approached in awe, but curiosity, as always, bred sin. They dissected Kos, carving into her lifeless form to harvest what the church called specimens of enlightenment. When the villagers resisted, they were massacred. Their blood was mixed with that of the Great One. Their bodies hung on stakes, their souls trapped within the nightmare that followed. The Kos parasite item speaks of this act indirectly. When the nightmare swells with the curse of the Great Ones, the orphan of Kos will be born. Based on what we know, the hunter's desecration of Kos's corpse is the very event that birthed the Nightmare of the Old Hunters DLC. The curse of Kos. The sea went silent that night. The wind died, and the surf receded as if holding its breath. From the corpse of Kos came a whisper grief so deep it tore reality itself. Every hunter who took part in the massacre was damned. Their memories, their deeds, even their deaths were bound together in a repeating dream, the hunter's nightmare. The first curse that echoes when the player enters the DLC is the voice of a dying villager crying, "Curse the fiends, their children too, and their children forever true." It is not vengeance alone. It is sorrow eternalized. The nightmare trapped the guilty in an endless hunt, forcing them to relive their sins until mercy was found. The hunter's nightmare. The hunter's nightmare is a reflection of Yharnam twisted by memory. Here, familiar streets drown in blood. The beasts are grotesque parodies of those once slain. Time folds upon itself, pulling in hunters from every era. This could imply that the nightmare is not a separate place, but a wound in the dream, a scar left by divine grief. Kos, though dead, still dreams, and her dream is a lament. The hunters who awaken here do not remember why, they only know they are guilty. Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. At the heart of the nightmare stands the Astral Clock Tower, where Lady Maria, once Gehrman's finest pupil, guards the path to the sea. She is beautiful and tragic, her voice calm even in battle. She wields the rakuyo, a twin-bladed weapon symbolizing duality, creation and destruction, teacher and student, sin and redemption. When the player confronts her, she says, "A corpse should be left well alone." Those words are confession and warning both. Maria could not bear the memory of what she did in the hamlet. In despair, she took her own life, but the curse would not release her. Now she guards the dream out of remorse, slaying any who would disturb Kos again. The Rakio description reads, "Forged by Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower, and later discarded in disgust. Based on what we know, she discarded it after the massacre, unable to hold the weapon that had slain innocents. The Orphan of Kos. Beyond the clock tower lies the shoreline of the nightmare, an echo of the fishing hamlet, frozen under grey light. There, the corpse of Kos lies still, and from it, the Orphan of Kos is born. Its first cry is raw anguish. It attacks not from hatred, but from pain, the scream of a child who never knew life. Its weapon, a piece of its mother's placenta, drips with divine sorrow. When the hunter defeats the orphan, the sea calms, the clouds part, and for the first time, the dream feels peace. The voice of Kos, faint and gentle, seems to whisper forgiveness. The village's torment ends, the curse lifts. This could imply that the death of the orphan is not victory, but absolution. Kos's soul, through her child, forgives the hunters who wronged her. The old hunters. Within the nightmare, remnants of the old expedition wander aimlessly. Simon the Harrows, who seeks redemption through truth. Brador, executioner turned zealot, whose madness drives him to slay any who pursue the secret. Ludwig, the first hunter of the church, transformed into a monstrous beast that still prays to the moon. Gehrman's shadow, implied in every whisper of guilt that fills the workshop. Each represents a fragment of the church's conscience. All are trapped, unable to awaken until the curse ends. The guidance rune found in the DLC reads, "When we are lost to madness, the Great Ones guide us still." In that single line lies the truth. Even through punishment, there is purpose. The meaning of the curse. The fishing hamlet stands as the origin of every sin in Yharnam. Here, the church proved that its faith was only hunger. The hunters sought knowledge, but what they found was consequence. Based on what we know, the nightmare exists because compassion still lingers within the divine. The Great Ones could have erased humanity entirely, yet they chose to let the guilty dream to allow remorse to bloom. When the player releases the orphan, the dream shifts. The old hunters finally rest, and the sea is calm once more. What remains is quiet. The whisper of waves against sand, the sound of forgiveness. Epilogue: Mercy of the Mother. The tragedy of the fishing hamlet completes the circle of Bloodborne's cosmic story. From the first drop of old blood to the last tear of the Great One, every act of defiance, every experiment, every hunt was born of the same flaw, curiosity. But in the death of the orphan lies hope. The Great Ones, though vast and terrible, understand grief. Kos's final act is not vengeance, it is release. The doll's words from the hunter's dream echo faintly. May you find your worth in the waking world. In that line, perhaps, lies the truth of the old hunters. They found their worth not in blood or power, but in regret. And in the stillness of the sea, the moon reflects softly on the water, its light neither forgiving nor condemning, simply watching. The nightmare is over. For now, Section 9, the endings and the fate of the hunter. The last hunt. When the final beast falls, and the red moon begins to wane, the hunter finds themselves once again within the quiet stillness of the hunter's dream. Cherry blossoms drift upon the air. The workshop glows softly under the pale light. And there, as always, waits Gehrman, seated in his wheelchair beneath the tree that never dies. His voice trembles not with fear, but with release. Tonight, Gehrman joins the hunt. The choice he offers is simple in words, impossible in meaning. Dear, oh dear, what was it? The hunt, the blood, or the horrible dream? To submit to Gehrman is to awaken. To refuse is to face him. Both paths end the hunt, but in different kinds of sleep. The first ending, Yharnam sunrise. If the hunter bows their head and accepts Gehrman's mercy, he draws his blade and whispers a final benediction. With one swift motion, the nightmare ends. The moon fades, the dream dissolves. The hunter awakens in a Yharnam bathed in morning light. A voice says, "You will be freed from this terrible hunter's dream." The streets are quiet, the beast's gone. Yet beneath the calm, something feels wrong. The camera lingers on the hunter, now just a traveller, resting in a wheelchair, tended by the doll who watches over their sleeping body. Based on what we know, this ending could represent release through forgetfulness. The hunter's service is done, their memories erased, but the dream endures, waiting for another soul to take their place. The cycle of rebirth, like the moon, begins again. The second ending, honouring wishes. If the hunter refuses Gehrman's offer, he sighs with sorrow. Oh well, dear friend, you will be the one to dream anew. He rises, blade in hand, the first hunter, bound by centuries of guilt, now defender of the Great One's will. The ensuing battle is both feral and mournful. Gehrman fights with fluid grace, wielding his scythe like a dancer of death. Each strike feels less like rage than like pleading, a teacher forcing his pupil to surpass him. When he falls, the moon blazes full. The moon presence descends, its tendrils weaving through the air like threads of silver fate. It lifts the hunter into its embrace, cradling them as it once did Gehrman. The doll's soft voice returns. Welcome home, good hunter. You've done well. But this time, the hunter cannot speak. They have become the new caretaker of the dream Gehrman's successor, the next warden of the endless hunt. This ending is often seen as tragic, yet based on what we know, it may also signify acceptance. The hunter becomes part of something eternal, keeping the nightmares contained so the waking world might rest. The third ending, childhood's beginning. The third and final ending is hidden, unlocked only if the hunter has consumed at least 3 of the 1/3 umbilical cords. These relics carry the echoes of Great One's births, their longing for surrogates, their divine blood and will. When the moon presence descends, the hunter resists. The cords burn within their body, granting a moment of transcendent awareness. No longer merely human, the hunter confronts the Great One as equal. The ensuing battle is surreal, less combat than communion. The hunter slays the moon presence, not out of hatred, but evolution. As the creature falls, the dream ignites in silent light. The doll kneels beside a small, pale infant, cradling it in her arms. "Are you cold?" she whispers, smiling softly. "Oh, good hunter." The camera pans upward to reveal a new dawn. The moon has vanished, replaced by endless sky. This could imply that the hunter has ascended, transformed into a new Great One, a being of the dream, now born to guide humanity's next step. The doll's maternal care mirrors Koss's forgiveness, suggesting that the hunter's rebirth closes the cycle of grief. Cycles of the dream. All 3 endings lead to the same truth. The hunt does not end, it changes hands. Each hunter inherits the will of those before them, carrying both their sins and their hope. Whether the hunter wakes, serves, or ascends, the dream remains the same cradle, endlessly rocking between nightmare and mercy. The hunter's mark and blood echo descriptions both reinforce this concept. This reminder allows one to awaken again without losing blood echoes. A hunter is never alone. From this, we can assume the dream is self-sustaining, a cosmic ecosystem feeding on memory and faith. To destroy it might unravel reality itself, for it keeps the nightmares contained within sleep. Symbolism of the moon. Throughout Yharnam's history, the moon has been both watcher and manipulator. When pale, it signifies distance from the Great Ones. When red, it heralds communion, the descent of cosmic forces upon the world. When gone entirely, the world is freed. The final imagery of each ending reflects that shift. A pale dawn in Yharnam sunrise, a full moon in honouring wishes, a clear sky in childhood's beginning. Each stage of light mirrors humanity's relationship with knowledge, ignorance, submission, transcendence. Based on what we know, this imagery suggests that Bloodborne's story is not about victory, but about awakening at different depths. The doll's blessing. In all endings, the doll remains. Her presence transcends time, dream, and outcome. She alone bridges the gap between mortal and divine. Her compassion unchanged, whether she tends a hunter, a god, or an infant. Her prayer, "May you find your worth in the waking world," becomes the thesis of Bloodborne itself. Worth is not granted by blood, or by eyes, or even by ascension. It is found in the quiet persistence to continue to hunt, to learn, to endure. The fate of the hunter. So what becomes of the hunter? The answer depends not on choice, but on understanding. The first ending grants peace, but forgetfulness. The second grants duty, but imprisonment. The third grants enlightenment, but isolation. Each offers truth, yet none offers freedom. Even ascension is but another dream, another layer of the same infinite pattern. Based on what we know, the hunter's journey reflects the same tragedy as the Great One's. To gain understanding is to lose self. Yet within that loss lies grace, the acceptance of impermanence, the eternal return. Bloodborne closes not with triumph, but reflection. The player, like every scholar and hunter before, sought knowledge and found the abyss. Yet they also found compassion, Maria's sorrow, the doll's care, Koss's forgiveness. These small mercies, scattered among the madness, are what give the story its strange peace. Because even in an endless cycle of blood and rebirth, kindness endures. When the doll kneels by the new Great One, her voice fades into the wind. The blossoms drift, and the moonless sky above the dream glows with quiet possibility. Section 10. The Legacy of Blood. What remains after the dream. The silence after the hunt. When the final bell ceases its toll and the blood moon fades, a strange silence settles over Yharnam. The cobblestone streets, once echoing with screams and the clash of steel, lie empty. Lanterns flicker before dying out, leaving only the slow dawn creeping through the mist. In that silence, the city seems almost peaceful, as if it were holding its breath between nightmares. But Yharnam's peace has always been an illusion. The blood that once healed and cursed its people still stains its veins, seeping into stone, bone, and memory alike. Whether the hunter awoke, ascended, or vanished, the world endures, changed in ways unseen. The dream may burn, the moon may fade, yet the legacy of blood remains, the blood that binds. Every story in Yharnam leads back to the same origin, the old blood. Discovered in the depths of the Pthumerian labyrinths and refined by the healing church, it became both miracle and weapon. Its power united all nobles, peasants, clerics, and hunters in one endless cycle of desire and decay. The blood echoes, left behind by beasts and men, speak to this truth. Every life lost is consumed by the next. The hunter's strength comes from what they kill, and their fall comes from what they consume. Based on what we know, this system is not punishment, but nature itself, an endless recycling of will. To live in Yharnam is to inherit its history, and history, like blood, never dies, the erasure of faith. After the collapse of the healing church, the cathedrals stand hollow. Their altars, once dripping with holy blood, are covered in dust and silence. No bells ring, no clerics chant. But faith has not vanished, it has merely changed form. For centuries, the church told its people that the blood was salvation. Now, even without priests, the people whisper prayers to the moon. The church hunter badge once read, "This silver sword is the symbol of a church hunter, those who have taken an oath to purge the world of beasts. Yet there are no beasts left to purge, only memories of their shadows. In time, the citizens will rebuild, but the fear remains that another hunt could begin, should someone rediscover the blood's gift." This could imply that the old blood's legacy is not its substance, but its idea, humanity's unending hunger for transcendence. Echoes of the Great Ones. The Great Ones themselves are gone, or perhaps merely sleeping once more. The moon presence, if defeated, leaves behind no trace. The sea is calm, the sky unbroken, yet their influence lingers in every heartbeat of the world. Wherever humanity dreams, the Great Ones can still be felt not as gods, but as echoes in the unconscious. The line between mortal and divine has blurred forever. The Rune Workshop tool hints at this continuity. Through runes, human thoughts blend with the will of the Great Ones. In this way, the communion between worlds never truly ended. Every prayer, every nightmare, every flicker of insight is another bridge. And perhaps that is the Great One's true form, not entities in the sky, but the quiet persistence of thought itself. The remnants of the dream. When the hunter's dream burns, only ash remains, and within that ash, a garden. The doll continues her gentle vigil, tending to flowers that bloom where blood once fell. If the hunter ascended, she tends to the newborn Great One with the same grace she once offered mortals. If the hunter awakened, she walks the ruins alone, whispering to the wind. In every ending, her words echo through eternity. Farewell, good hunter. May you find your worth in the waking world. Based on what we know, the dream does not vanish. It resets, like a ripple in an infinite sea. Each new hunter, each new dreamer, inherits fragments of the one before. The nightmare is not eternal because it cannot end. It is eternal because humanity cannot stop searching. The weight of curiosity. The story of Bloodborne is, at its heart, a story of curiosity. From Bergenworth's first scholars to the choir's experiments, from the school of Mensis to the hunter's own ambitions, each sought truth beyond human limits. They gazed into the cosmos, and the cosmos gazed back. What they called enlightenment was simply recognition, the universe acknowledging its reflection. The madman's knowledge item reads, knowledge consumed by the great ones, used to gain insight. That phrase encapsulates all of Yharnam's tragedy. Knowledge devours the knower. But still, they reached. Still, they sought. And perhaps that is what the great ones admired most, the audacity of mortal minds to keep climbing even as they fell. Lessons of the blood. From every age of Yharnam's history, a single truth can be drawn. The closer humanity reaches for divinity, the more it resembles the beasts it fears. Yet the inverse is also true. In every beast remains the memory of humanity. Even the monstrous Ludwig prays through his deformity. Even the orphan's cries are those of a child seeking a mother. This could imply that the Great Ones are not beings above man, but mirrors of what man becomes when his longing outweighs his limits. The blood, therefore, is not corruption, it is reflection. It shows each person their truest form, whether divine, monstrous, or both. The dreaming city. In the ruins of Yharnam, life slowly returns. Children play in streets where beasts once prowled. The bells that toll at night no longer summon huntsmen, but mark the passing of hours. Yet beneath the city, in the old tombs of the Pthumerians, the chalices still pulse faintly with light. The labyrinth breathes. The blood endures. It is said that those who venture too deep sometimes dream of a vast tree blooming under the sea, its roots bound in moonlight. Whether that dream is warning or invitation, no one can say. Based on what we know, the dream's embers may still flicker, waiting for another curious soul to wake it once more. The endless return. The story of Bloodborne is cyclical not just in its endings, but in its very nature. Every generation finds the same questions waiting beneath the surface. What lies beyond the stars? What is the cost of truth? And is ignorance truly peace? The Great Ones answer not with words, but with reflection. They give humanity what it asks for, and then hold up the mirror. When the player's journey ends, the questions remain. The dream fades, but the whisper endures. Seek the blood. Fear the old blood. Epilogue. Grace in the dark. Perhaps, after all, Bloodborne is not a story of horror, but of grace. A tale not of gods and monsters, but of longing, the desire to understand, to transcend, to forgive. From Kos's mourning to Maria's remorse, from Gehrman's burden to the doll's kindness, every tragedy in Yharnam carries within it a flicker of compassion. Even the Great Ones, in their alien vastness, know loss. And in that shared sorrow, man and God are not so different. The moonlight glows faintly over the ruined city. Somewhere, a lantern flickers back to life, and in the still air between dream and waking, a voice murmurs, "Good hunter, may you find your worth in the waking world." The cycle continues. The dream remains, but for a time long enough for sleep, long enough for peace, the world is quiet. And so, beneath the soft hush of the moon, our time in Yharnam draws to a close. The echoes have faded, the hunt is quiet, and only the faint breath of the dream remains. If you've stayed awake through all of this, or drifted off somewhere between the doll's whispers and the sigh of the sea, thank you for wandering with me tonight. You've walked through every shadow of this world, through its sorrow and its grace, and now, at last, you can rest. Here, in the stillness after the hunt, remember this. Even in the darkest worlds, even where monsters dwell, there is always something gentle that endures a voice, a memory, a glimmer of peace waiting at the end of the nightmare. So take a breath, let the echoes settle, let the moonlight fade behind your eyelids. If you enjoyed this quiet journey through Bloodborne's lore, through dreams, gods, and the strange mercy of the night, I'd love for you to stay a little longer with us. You can leave a like, share the video, or subscribe to Pixel Pillow for more worlds to fall asleep, to worlds where even the horrors are soft enough to dream inside. And until the next story, wherever you wake, may you find your worth in the waking world. Sleep well, Hunter.